Sarah Mitchell sat on the same worn-out bench that had become her shelter for the last 6 months. Her clothes, though faded, were always neat. She took pride in that. At 42, life had handed her a set of losses she had never imagined facing. The sudden death of her husband, the crushing weight of medical expenses that devoured her savings, and a cascade of misfortunes had left her here, on Maple Street, with her entire world packed into 2 shopping bags. Yet, Sarah still possessed something priceless. Her eyes still saw souls, not just faces passing by, and her heart still cared, even when the world walked past as if she were invisible. It was a mild Tuesday afternoon in late September, the kind of day where the sunlight felt tender and the air carried the promise of change. Sarah sat quietly, watching the neighborhood kids play, their laughter echoing through the street. Among them was little Emma Rodriguez, a bright 4-year-old with bouncy curls and blue sneakers that lit up when she walked. Emma lived with her mother, a young woman constantly in a rush, always balancing work and motherhood the best she could. Sometimes, Emma would wave at Sarah from across the street, and Sarah always waved back, cherishing that small flicker of human connection in an otherwise lonely world. That day began like all the others, until the clock struck 3, and everything shifted. At first, Sarah noticed the scent, not the comforting smell of a barbecue or chimney fire, but something acrid, alarming. Her eyes darted toward the brick apartment building across the road. Thick black smoke poured from a second-floor window. Flames clawed at the curtains, growing fiercer with each second. Neighbors began gathering, shouting, pointing, panic spreading like the fire itself. Someone yelled that help was on the way. The fire department would be there in 10 minutes. But Sarah froze when her eyes caught sight of something. Inside that smoke-filled window, Emma. The little girl's face was pressed against the glass, tears streaking down her cheeks, her mouth open in a silent cry that tore through Sarah's heart. 10 minutes. That child didn't have 10 minutes. Without hesitation, Sarah dropped her bags and ran. Her old sneakers slapped against the pavement as she sprinted across the street. People yelled after her, "Stop! It's too dangerous!" But their words dissolved into background noise. All that mattered was Emma. The building's front door radiated heat. Sarah pulled her jacket over her hand and shoved it open. Smoke swallowed her instantly, thick and choking. She dropped to her knees, remembering something she'd once heard. Clean air lingers close to the floor. Crawling forward, she pushed up the stairway, her lungs burning with every breath. The door to Emma's apartment was ajar, the heat inside fierce enough to sting her skin. She forced her way through, calling out the little girl's name. The living room was an inferno, but from somewhere beyond the smoke came the faint sound of sobbing. Sarah wrapped her jacket across her face and pushed through the haze until she reached the back bedroom. There, huddled in a corner, was Emma, clutching a small stuffed rabbit, trembling and paralyzed with fear. "Hey, sweetheart," Sarah whispered through the smoke, gathering the child into her arms. "I've got you. Close your eyes and hold on tight." Getting out proved far harder than getting in. Flames had already consumed their path back. Sarah's mind raced for options. Then she remembered the narrow back stairwell, usually filled with discarded furniture. It was their only hope. Clutching Emma close, Sarah pressed forward through the blistering air. She could feel her skin sear, her strength fading, but she refused to stop. The stuffed rabbit slipped from Emma's grip and disappeared into the smoke, but Sarah didn't turn back. Every step felt endless. Her chest screamed for oxygen, her vision dimmed, but she kept moving. For Emma, for this innocent child who deserved birthdays, laughter, and love. Finally, she pushed open the back exit. Fresh air rushed in as sirens wailed in the distance. Sarah stumbled onto the grass behind the building, collapsing with Emma still held tightly in her arms. Both were coughing, gasping, but alive. Paramedics hurried to the scene, surrounding Sarah and Emma in a rush of movement. Someone gently draped a blanket around their shoulders as the chaos settled into relief. Moments later, Emma's mother came running through the crowd, crying out her daughter's name. She fell to her knees the instant she reached them, wrapping Emma in trembling arms. sobbing words of gratitude that barely reached Sarah's ears through the haze of exhaustion and smoke. Sarah was taken to the hospital, treated for mild burns and heavy smoke inhalation. Doctors insisted she stay overnight, but she quietly declined. She had no health coverage, no means to pay, and no desire for attention. She simply wanted to slip away as quietly as she had lived these past 6 months. When she returned to Maple Street the next morning, her bench, the only place that had felt like hers, was surrounded by news vans and flashing cameras. The story had spread overnight. Homeless woman saves child from apartment fire. Reporters wanted quotes, photos, interviews, but Sarah quietly disappeared before anyone could reach her. She hadn't done it for fame. She'd done it because her heart told her she had to. 3 days passed. Sarah relocated to another part of town, somewhere quieter, hoping the world would move on. She sat one afternoon on a park bench, watching the autumn leaves drift across the path, when a sleek black car pulled up near the curb. A tall man, perhaps in his early 50s, stepped out. His neatly combed silver hair and tailored suit spoke of success, but his eyes searched the park with intent and emotion. When his gaze finally met Sarah's, he walked toward her, calm, respectful, almost hesitant. "Sarah Mitchell?" he asked softly. She gave a cautious nod. "My name is David Rodriguez," he said. "Emma is my granddaughter." Sarah's breath caught. Now that she looked closely, she saw it. Those same expressive eyes, the same warmth that Emma had. David sat beside her on the bench, his tone filled with gratitude and awe. "I've been looking for you for 3 days. My daughter told me everything. How you went into that fire when everyone else froze. How you brought Emma out alive." Sarah lowered her gaze, her fingers tracing the faint scars along her hands. "Anyone would have done the same." He shook his head gently. "But they didn't. You did. And I think you should know. Emma asks for you every day. She calls you her angel." David reached into his jacket and pulled out a plain white envelope. "I'm not here to insult you with money," he said carefully. "I'm here to offer something real, a new beginning." He took a slow breath before continuing. "I own a company called Rodriguez Industries. We build homes for families who need them most. I'd like you to join us, to lead our community outreach program. It comes with a salary, benefits, and a place to live. But more than that, it comes with purpose. The same heart I saw in you that day." Sarah stared at him speechless, emotions tangling in her chest. "I've learned something in my 60 years, David continued quietly. "Real wealth isn't what sits in a bank. It's the courage to do what's right, even when it costs you everything. You have that kind of wealth, Sarah, more than I ever did when I started with nothing but a dream." Tears filled her eyes. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll come see Emma tomorrow," David said gently. "Say you'll let us help you start again. Say you'll let us repay the kindness you gave my family." Sarah thought back to that moment in the burning building. The smoke, the fear, the voice inside that told her to turn back, and the stronger one that made her push forward anyway. Maybe this was life's way of reminding her that goodness still finds its way home. "Okay," she breathed, a tear slipping down her cheek. "Okay." David's face softened into a smile, and in his eyes she saw the same spark she'd seen in Emma's. Hope, gratitude, and faith that compassion still mattered. 6 months later, Sarah's life had changed completely. She had her own apartment, a steady job she loved, and a new sense of belonging. She shared dinners with the Rodriguez family every week. Emma, who now called her Aunt Sarah, never stopped talking about the day her angel saved her life. Sarah had come to realize that sometimes you have to pass through the fire, literally or figuratively, to find where you truly belong. Even the smallest act of bravery can ripple outward, changing more than one life. Because in the end, we're all just people doing our best to be kind. And when kindness leads, miracles are never far behind.